Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida Fair Tax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, March 3rd, 2023. Tax preparation companies are caught selling personal confidential data. Tax preparation companies like H&R Block, TaxSlayer, and TaxAct are getting more and more clients as the income payroll tax system grows increasingly complex and as fees charged by tax preparation professionals spiral upward. Now, obviously, these companies must collect personal and confidential information about their clients and their clients' finances in order to do the job they're being paid to do. Now, it should be equally obvious that these companies are expected to maintain the privacy and confidentiality of their customers' personal data. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. An article published at TheVerge.com revealed that H&R Block, TaxAct, and TaxSlayer have been selling their customers' sensitive financial information to Facebook. Now, here's some of the points made in that article. Facebook has created a pixel code that it has embedded on more than 2 million websites. When users sign in to file their taxes with popular tax service TaxAct, for example, they're asked to provide the personal information needed to prepare their returns. The sensitive data includes how much money they make and details about their investments. A pixel on TaxAct's website captured and sent some of that data to Facebook. This includes users' filing status, their adjusted gross income, the amount of their refund, and the names of their dependents. Similar financial data, but not names, were sent to Google. H&R Block gathered information on filers' health savings account usage and dependents' college tuition grants and expenses. TaxSlayer gathered and sent phone numbers, names, and dependents to Facebook. Now, amazingly, these revelations have not sparked the kind of outrage you'd expect to see from people whose confidentiality has been betrayed for pure commercial gain. There have been no calls in Congress from either side of the aisle to investigate these obvious abuses. In conclusion, Tom Clancy, the author of numerous best-selling fiction novels, stated, "The control of information is something the elite always does, particularly in a despotic form of government. Information and knowledge is power. If you can control information, you can control people." Now, yes, it's outrageous that Facebook and the tax preparation companies colluded to take our private and confidential information that we're required to submit on our federal income tax returns and then pass it around for their business uses without our knowledge or permission. Now, does anyone think that the data we send to the IRS, or any federal agency for that matter, won't be available to the ruling class and their minions? Do they think it won't be used by the ruling class and their minions to control people who dare to question them? Now, this is why there was so much opposition to the Treasury Department's proposal to make banks and credit card companies submit massive amounts of data about our financial transactions to the IRS. No one trusts the ruling class and their minions, and with good reason. The private returns of some of the country's wealthiest citizens were leaked and exposed to the world on the internet. Now, it's a violation of federal law to disclose that information without the taxpayer's permission. But still, to this day, the leakers haven't even been identified, much less prosecuted, even though they committed a felony. Why? Well, because even though it was illegal, the ruling class and their minions saw this as a positive act. They want to make sure that no one dares to disobey them or even question them. Keeping the wealthy in fear of being subject to punitive tax measures is an effective way to keep them in line. It also sends a message to the rest of us that our supposedly confidential information about our income, our charitable donations, and other deductions can be leaked if we don't meekly go along and do what they say is best for us. However, there is a fantastic way to prevent these types of abuses. Repeal the income payroll tax system and enact the fair tax. The fair tax transfers power from the government to the people. Now, there's going to be a vote on the fair tax in the House of Representatives later this year. We now have the opportunity to force all members of the House to show where they stand. They can vote for the present income payroll tax system, or they can vote for the fair tax. They can vote to support the corrupt income tax in the IRS, or vote to eliminate it. It can't be any simpler than that. They can vote to hide the true cost of the government or pass the fair tax and show everyone the true cost of government on every retail receipt. And finally, our House members can support the largest transfer of power from the government to the people, or they can vote against it. Now, if members think the fair tax needs to be changed, then they can propose that change. Don't condemn the entire bill because it has a flaw in it that can be easily addressed. Please stand with us and demand that your representatives support a much fairer, much simpler, and much more efficient way to fund the government, the fair tax. The fair tax doesn't pick winners and losers. Because it taxes spending, not earnings, the fair tax lets everyone save for their retirement tax-free. Now, the fair tax collects the revenue the federal government needs to operate, but does it in a way that has the least adverse impact on our individual freedom and the least impact on our economic prosperity. With a fair tax, there are no tax returns to file, no records to keep. We pay our federal taxes when we make retail purchases of new goods and services. And with a fair tax, there is no need for the IRS. If you sell a used couch or a used jet ski online, there's no fair tax due on that transaction. The fair tax will allow us to take back control. The income payroll tax system is broken. It's no longer working. We can't repair it, but we can replace it with the fair tax. Join us and take back control of our country and our lives, not with bullets, but with the elimination of one of the biggest threats to our liberty and economic prosperity, the income payroll tax. We should all remember Edmund Burke's warning that applies to our efforts to take back control. Nobody made a greater mistake than he who did nothing because he could only do a little. We should also remember this quote from George Orwell's 1984, which, if we do nothing, may foretell your and your children's future. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. So what can each of us do? We can write letters and make calls to our elected representatives and attend Zoom town hall meetings demanding that if they really want to allow Americans to take back control, the first step is to eliminate the income payroll tax system and enact the fair tax. Take back control. Help us pass the fair tax. Help us bring about real tax reform and stop future IRS abuses. By contributing or actually investing $10.40 a month, you help provide the financial base that AFFT needs. If you can make a larger investment, well, then that will not be used for salaries, as we're all volunteers, but rest assured that will be used for the needed updates to our economic studies, which will be vital for all future years. Please go to fairtax.org and invest in AFFT. Invest in your and your family's future.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at fairtax.org.